My name's Kevin Bullock. I'm a head teacher and I'm also a national leader in education. I've been involved with a variety of educational initiatives, both local and national level. My talk today is not highly theoretical. It's just about things that seem to work and have a high impact. And it's not we're not going to be wading through a lot of data. You may be pleased or not pleased to know. For example, data can be very misleading. And I don't know if there are any Catherines or Duncans here this morning, Catherines or Duncans. I'm not going to ask you to admit that, not that it's an embarrassing name or anything, but if there were Catherines or Duncans, I could tell you that you were 8 times more likely to get 5 good GCSE passes than certain other named individuals. I'm almost embarrassed to ask this, are there any Dwaynes or Traces here today? Okay, I'm not going to take this any further, but you see, all I'm saying, I'm not belittling research. Research is vital to our profession. We need it in order to improve our practice, but actually, you know, we can go a little over the top with stuff that we read. So we won't be wading through lots of stuff like that. Interestingly, I mean, why is that? Catherines and Duncans, does something miraculous happened at the naming ceremony or christening that you know, wow, Catherine or Duncan, 8 times more likely to succeed in GCSEs. Just amazing. I mean, it'll be in the Raise Online, you know what I'm talking about, some of you folks and all that, you'll see the English as additional language, free school meals, and Catherines or Duncans, how they perform with the national. So don't tell Mr. Gove or anybody from Ofsted that there is a correlation, for heaven's sake, because we will be all day trying to justify why our Catherines and Duncans aren't making that grade, aren't going forward. Right, well, my talk is entitled High-Impact Pupil Engagement, Tips and Techniques, and it's just given us a chance to reflect and think and perhaps take away just 1 or 2 ideas to try back at base. What I'm going to also do is refer to our, which you would know as classrooms, as our learning rooms. I'm just trying to keep the focus on learning as opposed to describing a place where a bunch of kids meet, i.e. classroom. So I'll be talking about learning rooms very much through this. But first, can I pick on you, please? Could you just put your hand and pick a number, please? First number that comes through, please. We haven't met, have we? No, okay. Can you keep the number and I'll try. Sir, could you just pick a number there, just first one that comes through? Thank you. And just want to see, Madam, can you see those different numbers, 63? Okay, okay. Random selection of numbers. What number did you pick? You picked 12, and what number?
98.
98, 12, 98. Are there any mathematicians? Level 6 here, what's that? 12 and 98 are 12, 98. Come on, are you teachers? 12 and 100, good girl at the back. 110, 110. Honestly, 100, agreed? 110. Now, would you be, this is the question, would you be surprised now if I lifted this and I revealed the number 110? Who would be surprised? Could you put your hands up now? Wow, okay, thank you. Who would say no? There's no way. Who's going to say? Nobody going to say no? Okay, well, let's see what the answer is. And the answer is, of course, no. Now, my reason for this illustration is I just want to sum up the rest of this talk. This illustrates it. Because some of the stuff I'm talking about, you folks will say, well, no, I'm not going to consider it. No, I've tried it before and it doesn't work. No this, no that. And I want to peel away at the no today. Because when we peel away at the no, something strange happens. When we just let go of our no's, we actually get, what number do we want? 110. So that's where we're starting today. We're thinking, blow it. Give me a chance on some of this, because I don't think there'll be anything new. But I think we need to re-engage with the stuff that's important. So my starting point today, very simple, is attitude is everything. I'm going to say that again. Attitude is everything. And one of the biggest influences on our attitude is our environment. And if you don't consider that to be true, think of the way that you enter a library. Think of the way that you enter a disco. Is there any differences in your behaviour? Think of the way that you enter a shopping precinct. Think of the difference that is entering a place of worship. I believe that it's all about the expectation of the environment. And my questions to you today is, what expectation do the people expect when they cross the threshold into your learning room, your learning space? And I'm asking about the expectations of parents, as well as pupils, as well as colleagues, as well as your head teachers or bosses, senior leadership team, whatever, whoever you are. I believe one of the most effective ways to ensure that we have a positive environment in order to get our environment up to the highest of expectations is not from management, not from systems, but it's what I call collective neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. I'm not an expert on that, but I do know in my experience as a head teacher and looking at other schools that the words we say out loud are mostly the words we think with, and the words we think with have a direct impact in our mindset, in our outlook. If a pupil says, I can't, I'm thick, I'm dense, it's not my words, it's theirs, they're probably right for that moment in time. If they say, yeah, I can do it, I'm going to really succeed here, they probably will. It's about the mindset within them. And I just want to share with you some world-famous people that had some iffy starts. And there's method in my madness here, I'll tell you later on. I've read that Walt Disney was fired by a big newspaper because he lacked any original ideas. Fred Astaire was told by MGM that he couldn't act and wasn't much of a dancer either. Now, you guys are looking a bit confused. I know you're not old enough to know who Fred Astaire is, some of you. I remember him, and so do a few of you. Beethoven's violin teacher declared him a hopeless composer. Helen Keller, you've heard of Helen Keller, just to re-remind you, we need to re-remind our special needs children about this. 1880, born, 19 months old, she became deaf, blind and deaf. And what happened? She was barely able to communicate, but in the end she became an author, a lecturer, a political activist. I sometimes get my children to squeeze their eyes closed, lock up their ears and say, that's Helen Keller. How on earth did she succeed? I'm so grateful that there were not too many do-gooders and kind of a lot of liberal idealism around her. I'm so glad that she was surrounded by a teacher called Anne Sullivan, who knew attitude. Attitude was everything. There's been hundreds, scores of inventors, scientists, mathematicians, musicians, authors and business and men and women who were once told they'd never be a success. This is a key point. Failing is a fact of life. I think we need to make that clear to our children. You will fail, but feeling a failure is a choice. Failing is a fact of life. We all fail. But feeling a failure is a choice. And I also speak to you as teachers. I also speak when we hear the dreaded Ofsted word. But we've got to get that fact, because if we can embrace failure, we won't suffer from the most debilitating emotion going, and that's the fear of failure. That absolutely closes down our intellect like nothing else and just takes away our emotions, dries us up. And so I talk to you as adults and as children. So I purposely share heroic failures with my pupils, with my teachers, with folks I come into contact with, not in kind of a way like this necessarily, but just remind them what was said about other folks who have had success. The great innovator and inventor Thomas Edison had thousands of failures pursuing his goals, and he said, I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Like you guys in the classroom. You know, I get it all the time. Gosh, it didn't work again. but feeling a failure is a choice. So we must learn to fail intelligently. Failing, somebody says, is one of the greatest art forms in the world. Fearing failure is devastating. We need to get out of that mindset. Those who will be underperforming, and let's consider ways of changing their mindset. We are what we think, adults and children. We don't see life the way it is. That's another key point. We do not see life the way it is. We see life the way we are. And if you don't believe me, you know when you've got a massive mountain in front of you and you talk to a trusted colleague or friend, or you have a good night's sleep, or you have that little glass of wine, things do look different. And they look different, and you feel they're different. It isn't the thing out there, it's the thing within you that has to change. I've already said attitude is everything. The right mindset is crucial. The major influence on our mindset is the environment that you guys set in your learning rooms. And one of the ways I go to setting a learning room that has high expectations. It's not about class rules, but I call it a rationale for success. I call it the 10 truths for sustained high performance. This won't work for you. If you were to have a copy of this, it won't work, because I have completed this with my pupils, with the children at my school. Don't be daft, be deft. This is true. This is no bull. I genuinely used to have 3 or 4 children at lunchtimes who would be in a pain at playtime. You know what it's like, especially wet playtimes and things. When they come to me and say, oh, Johnny's been hitting Sue, or something like this, and I'll say, before they even speak, I say, what do we say at this school? And they say, ditch excuses, face the truth. What does it mean? It means, Mr. Bullock, if I'm honest with you and tell you the truth, you will be cross still, but actually you won't have to phone mummy and blah, 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 blah. I promise you it works. The children came up with that. And I have to say, they got me to make it work, because I'm the proud owner of this letter, which is called Speedwatch. And it was by Speedwatch volunteers. And Mr. Bullock drove through Chippenham, if you know, don't know, in Cambridgeshire, at 36 miles an hour. And I got home, didn't I? And I wasn't very pleased. I thought, it was a 30 mile an hour limit. I can run 6 miles an hour. That's the difference between one. And I was going on, but then in assembly, my wife reminds me, because it is important that if we live by these philosophies, it isn't just for the class time, it's beyond, it gets in our psyche. So I in the assembly, I said, kids, Mr. Bullock got done, didn't he? What did I have to do? And they went through 2 or 3 of those first, and then we got to the ditch excuses, face the truth. So I said, yeah. I said, Mr. Bullock was wrong, and I think, I'm not holier than thou, I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying we need to model, if we want this stuff to be real to our year 5 and 6 challenging boys, we need to model it. We also have number 3, it's not the winning, it's the taking part. I have a child with severe mobility problems. He's quite ill. And when we have competitive sports days, we really have them, because people would say it's not the winning, it's a taking part. For me, I think it's a load of tosh, because I always used to want to win. However, it really is the finishing. I think it's finishing is more important than taking part. And this little guy, he was last. He just almost fell across the line, but it was like a Hollywood movie thing. And he wasn't stroppy, but he was really running there for all his might, came last, the kids were all clapping him, and he was really pleased that he had finished. It does work. I used to get stroppy, usually, year 5, 6 boys in sports day, 6 or 7 years ago when they came last, or they just, go in the strop. I don't get any of that now. I don't get any now, because they know that it's the finishing that counts. Just number 6, improvement comes in centimetres, not kilometres. eat an elephant one bite at a time. Us teachers are terrible at that, aren't we? We just want to get from here to there, and we get from here to there, and we haven't perhaps given the little bit of scaffold that the children have needed. So again, I remind children when they think they're rubbish at maths, that's their words, not mine, that hey, you've just got to move a little bit at a time, you've just got to one step. Can you see where I'm going here? I think that language, we just underestimate the power. It doesn't have to be called the 10 truths. I'm not saying this won't work for you. Get your class together and say, come on guys, I need to get you moving. We need to move as a unit, and let's think about some sayings. Ask them what they already know. Some of the children will have it, some won't. The most successful saying, which I haven't got up there, and this is true, and this has saved me hours senior leadership teams, and this is how it goes. I tried to play my mum like a piano. Sounds sexist, but I have to say from my point of view it was the mum, so forgive me. I tried to play my mum like a piano when I'm on the fiddle. And I said, and those children, I said, what does it mean? And they said, that means, Mr. Bullock, if I've only told mum half the truth, and then she comes and has a go at you about me being bullied, but I didn't tell you about I kicked him first, blah, blah. You get the drift. And that, and parents now, in my parents' evening, and I would see the new parents in April, and I would tell them, this is what we have now. And do you know what? 6 months later, I had parents almost apologising for coming to see me. They said, we know that, you know, if they're on the fiddle, they may be playing me like a piano, but it's far better that way, isn't it? Than having those coming in with, you know what I'm saying. So I'm saying, hey folks, I'm not saying that your child isn't telling the whole truth, but actually, children are pretty, even 5, 6-year-olds. They know exactly how to turn those little buttons with mum, in my experience. With you, it could be dads, but with me, it's been the mums. Okay, let's move on. So I think this is a powerful way to rebrand your learning room. And let's consider children are only at school for around 22% of their waking life. Now, I had to go back and I recalculated that, but when you take away the weekends, when you take away holidays, when you look at the hours, when you take away, do you know what, 22%. So then it figured that, well, I've got to get these parents on board more than I thought. I need to get them to really understand where I'm going. Because if I'm doing it for a quarter of the time, and the parents are undoing what I'm suggesting 3/4, it ain't doing much good for me. So you've got to get parents on board and make it explicit why you're doing it. Get them to, give them a sheet. You may only come up with 3 or 4. Give them to them, get them to take them home, get them to give the parents the rationale. And don't write the rationale. The children will be far better at telling them why you've come up. I'll just show you 2 more things. I'm really proud of this. This is called the 21 Club. I don't know if you remember on the 21st of January, we were all snowed in. Did you? You come from all over the country here. And do you know what? The secondary school was closed. I'm nothing anti-secondaries, but they were shut up shop. I know they have to come further. My little primary school was open, and some of the little brothers and sisters who left their brothers in bed and sisters still come into school, but they didn't want to, but their attitude was there. And so I said, hey guys, I'm so proud of you. You're going to belong to the 21 Club. And they all got a little card, and I spoke to a local shop in Newmarket, and I said, any chance of just, if they bring this in, give them 10% discount, just as a one-off, and that's the kind of thing I think we're missing tricks on, because the community love to help schools. They get free publicity. So take it to the nth degree. The other thing, some of you are going to really loathe this. Some of you are going to think, oh, that's a good idea. Depends how touchy-feely you are. We've got sorry cards. And sorry card, I mean, I know this sounds really, really gentle, doesn't it? Some of the children need to say sorry. Us adults are terrible at saying, well, I know I am. Particularly perhaps at times to my nearest and dearest. So we have sorry cards. If we want to say sorry, but what we do, we pass it on. Sorry, the children will pass it on to the one they want to say sorry to, but then they say to the person they've said sorry to, if you need to say something sorry to somebody, will you pass the card on? So these little cards are all over the place and they're looking battered and torn. But it actually works. But it's no good just saying, here, there's a sorry card. You've got to look at the rationale behind them. Sutton Trust, some fantastic research, wasn't it? They said that self-regulating pupils were powerful. It was high impact, low cost. High impact, low cost, self-regulatory pupils. Pupils where the teachers made their learning more explicit. Where teachers made it clearer that how they could succeed. It was the children managing their own motivation. Self-regulating pupils, high impact, low cost. That's what I'm talking about now. That's how we're going to get them there. An ex-pupil once come back and told my children, because he was a pain in the back, and he came back and he said to he changed. He really done good. And the children said, oh, you've had a brain swap. And this sounds so twin, it isn't me just for you guys. But he said, no, but he said, I've had an attitude change. He said, I really did change my mindset. So I think that's all I want to say on this. But don't forget, 22%, and we need to get the parents involved. Right, another key point. I suggest we look at our practice with new eyes, with penetrating eyes. Let me move on. We look at our learning room. There's some interesting studies being done on learning rooms. They refer to them as classrooms. Academics at the University of Salford looked at environment and pupil performance. And there were 5 environmental factors that had a positive effect on pupils' learning. Number 1, it was the natural light, particularly if the natural light came from more than one area. Natural light. And if natural light wasn't there, then you needed really good electric lighting. I went once for a job, and I have nothing against Victorian buildings at all, and some of you will be in Victorian buildings, but there wasn't enough light getting in. And when I looked at the state of the lighting, which was kind of an orangey colour, or however you describe dull light, it wasn't anybody's fault, but I could just see it would cost thousands and thousands and thousands, and if you don't get the right light, I just believe it has a de-energizing effect. So that's natural light and lighting. Wall, floor colours. Do you consider your colours carefully? The warm colours to complement the boisterousness of young children, the extrovert way. The cool colours that enhance older children's concentration. Do you use colours that excite, colours that give peace, colours that give authority? Do you use the same colour throughout your learning room? Or are there areas in your learning room that you will give different colours to? Number 4, they found that another surrounding that enhanced pupil progress was comfortable and larger desks and chairs. Comfortable, I know we can't do a lot about that. They're either large enough, desks and chairs, or not, but that was just one of the findings. And finally, a range of activity zones allowing different types of learning to take place at the same time. The research found that diversity stimulated pupils. You won't be surprised to know the 2 things that had an adverse effect on some of their study was the air quality. Air quality in a small learning area. That was universally poor, they found. So have note to your air quality. You know how important that is in the way of oxygen, brain, and keeping awake. And the noise and temperature levels were also 2 factors which were obvious in extremes had an adverse effect. I ask my students, I go to them, different classes, and I say, what do you need to access every day? What is hard to have access to? The pencils, the paintbrushes. Ask the children, don't be the teacher, the architect of everything. See how they find it in your learning space. Where is their favourite learning spot in your classroom, your learning room? Ask them, and why? Is there anything in your room that needs constant tidying, rearranging? And what would you change more or throw out from this classroom? And if you had an empty classroom, and children will give you great ideas, if you had an empty classroom, what's the first thing you would put in it to help your learning? Taking away desks and chairs and all the obvious stuff. What is and why? What is it? There's a delicate balance in our learning rooms between security. We want to give them security, but too much security perhaps may lead to complacency. We want our learning spaces, learning rooms to be predictable, but too much predictability may just take away a little bit of creativity. We want it to be data rich, but again, are we overloading them with information? We want stuff to be at eye level contact. Means different things to different pupils, but does that mean that you're underusing your space at higher levels and lower levels? And do you review your features in your classroom? I'm not talking about displays, and I don't know what your features are. You will know that. Perhaps a writing corner, or if you're early years, a library, or pretend vet surgeons or something. Are you making sure that you're enhancing and using and changing that, or is it becoming over familiar? Just to give you some more, your learning room. And again, you'll have all these. There's more questions. We'll just move forward. Activities. I'm always saying, can you balance the difference between activity and accomplishment? I've seen so many excellent engaging sessions with children, but when I've looked at the learning objective and what they've been doing in the activities, there's been very little correlation. And so I'm not an offset inspector, by the way, but it's a failing lesson. I think we sometimes work so hard at getting these activities, getting the all singing and dancing stuff, that we don't really think, what do we want to achieve? Would it be better to have 5 of the same activities for the different groups doing, as opposed to keep thinking of different activities? These are some of the questions that you can reflect on at a later date. And I believe you can make these high impact, low cost. Learning walks. I don't know if your governors are involved with those, but I've done it just to help them so they know what they're looking at. I'm not being patronising to governors, by the way, but some of them, they come in and they've been bowled over by how much they have to get involved with now. And so I just give them that to let them walk and to ask those questions. I want to just move forward to pupil engagement. This is something we use a lot at our school. I no longer ask, is that child a high performer or a low performer? I ask, are they a high engager or a low engager? Usually it correlates. The low engagers are the lower performers, the high engagers are the higher performers. And I say to my staff, telling me that they're low engaging isn't enough anymore. I want to know some of the reasons why. Because until I know what that child's perceptions are, I can't help it. Because what I then do is meet those children. I'll go around the classrooms and I'll say, Mr. So-and-so, how many low engagers have you got? Suddenly they all go like this. But I get their names, they come with me. I do not do any intervention strategies. I just do the coaching bit. Why are you messing about? Why do you always throw that pencil at him over there? And I let them listen to what they're telling me. And I keep probing them and probing them. And in the end, they can hear how silly they're being. And they know that I will catch them again the following week to see if there's been an improvement. It's a whole school thing. But it's looking at engagement. And it's making them aware of their attitude. What I do as well, we have a success as some of these children who are low engagers become high engagers. Have you heard of, what is it? Waggle? Anybody heard of waggle here? It's a phrase I picked up a few weeks ago. It's called what a good one looks like. What a good one looks like. W-A-G-O-L-L. And that's great actually for work. You obviously in the work, hey, this is the piece of work, this is what the work should look like when you're finished. Waggle, what a good one looks like. But I use that for high engagers. But I don't use the engagers who are the all singing and dancing school captain, the comic book hero, because ordinary kids look to him or her and think, I can never aspire, I can never become that. So what I'm always looking for is reformed characters in my own school. Because when they come up in assembly and say, yeah, I managed to do this, yes, I've managed, and I got to an achievement award, the children say, wow, if they can do it, then I can do it. They can relate. Are you following what I'm saying there? So it's using the look for reform characters in your school. And do you know what? There's a real interest in when I ask the high achievers how they achieve, they actually say things like it's flipping hard work. When I go to the low achievers and ask them, they say, oh, I'm just thick. Oh, I just can't do it. That's their words, not mine. So what I want to suggest to you today, that high engagers focus on the task and low engagers focus on themselves. And that was a real Damascus moment for me, because I hadn't really thought of it like that. And that helped me to start to unpick some of my low engagers and start to tell them that even the high engagers find it flipping hard work. Nobody finds it easy. It's just how much we apply. What they've found, pupil engagement improved with the increase of exposure to the natural environment. That's been found. Plants and natural surroundings and so on have a positive impact on pupil behaviour. 10 years ago, in a study published by the American Journal for Public Health, they found exposing children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, to outside greenery had a strong association with reduction in ADHD symptoms and exposure, and as they expose them to more green surroundings, the issues decreased. In fact, the walk around the park for 20 minutes had tremendous results. The University of Essex research, they found that every green environment improved self-esteem and mood. And the presence of water, wouldn't believe this, would you? The presence of water had even greater efforts. Evidence suggests that green exercise, that's exercise within green around grass and areas like that, is more beneficial to just exercise on its own. So we've got to look, I don't know if some of you guys are from the urban area where it is a lot of concrete there, but just being aware that green helps, plants help. 22% of their time they're with you, the other they're at home. Have you asked parents, can they have a plant for their bedroom? Just get the stuff, because it is showing that it has a good effect on behaviour and well-being. So plants, water features. I have a school gardening club. We have most of our pupil premium. That's another thing, isn't it, at the moment, pupil premium. Make sure you've got a gardening club for your pupil premium pupils, particularly challenging ones, because I really promise you, we've had amazing success. I have a teaching assistant who runs it, and I don't know what sprouts and carrots and that stuff and the smell of potatoes does, but it does calm these kids. And I know I'm generalising a little, but just try to see. Good, wholesome, environmental stuff. And we need to educate their parents. We need to tell them this. We need to show them that plants in bedrooms is good. Okay, the last, we've barely got 10 minutes. I want to use the O word, because that's some part of our lives as well. Now, I'm not going to leave time on this. You can have this if you want the handout. But I put together from Ofsted and from Teachers Standard for my staff. I think there's 10 or 12 bullet points to make outstanding lessons. I'll leave it at there. Do you know what? I wouldn't have a hope in anything ever achieving outstanding, and I don't think any of my staff would every day, because if it did, it would kill them. They would be dead. So I think we need to go for good teaching. I think it's good to see what outstanding teaching to aspire to, and I think we need to know what the absolutely utopia of teaching is. But I think we just need to go for good and make sure we're regularly good. So many people I see, particularly the last 6 months, have started to view Ofsted as the enemy. And there may be inspectors in here, so don't come and see me afterwards. I'm just sharing that many heads and many deputy heads and teachers, I would suggest they are different, even if you kind of split yourself into when you're a head and you're an Ofsted. But I wouldn't see them as the enemy. That's about destruction. I would see them as an opponent. See Ofsted as our opponents. So when they come in with that narrow data stream, we've got to show that we can beat them by giving them the story of our success, giving them the evidence of what's happening. And actually, I have had so many people tell me, you know, when I started to show a little bit more confidence, or when I started to argue back with a bit of evidence, the actual inspector changed tack immediately. It's a worrying time for many of us. I was at a seminar last week, and you could almost, I don't want to say this and worry you, but like you could almost smell the fear. And at the end, I went up to the presenters and apologised and say, look, guys, it wasn't you. It was just about what's happening to our profession at the moment. But what comes out time and time again is some of the stuff. If we do this stuff, we believe in this stuff, and you're showing the way forward, and you're not in the narrow data. I mean, I still think there is hope, but see them as the opponent, to be outwitted. It'll be difficult, but we'll do it, as opposed to the enemy. Right. The other thing I want to just share with you briefly then on the subject of Ofsted is my teachers will share the learning objectives with their pupils, but they never share the success criteria, but they'll never share the success criteria that I am looking for to see if they're doing their job properly. So I say to them, share that with your children, share that with your pupils. When Ofsted come, don't suddenly think those poor kids, they're going to be rooting for their teacher. So if the teacher says, hey, this Mr. Ofsted is going to see if any of you guys are finished and you're just staring out the window, I'm going to get a big cross for that. Make sure that if you're finished, you're doing this. I would share some of the success criteria you as teachers will be judged by with your children. It's about us, isn't it? And that's what I'm talking about. I have pre-Ofsted assemblies. And I said, guys, these guys are coming. They're nice people, but they won't really. They'll come and they'll be a little bit. They've got just 2 days. So just remind me, and the children will be there, my staff will be there, and I'll say, what happens if a guy looks over the wall and he says, hey, come here, little child, what do you do? I mean, some of them say, oh, we'd go over to the wall, but some of them will say, oh no, we'd go and see Miss So-and-so, and then we're blah, blah, blah. And as I say that, the children all get it, the staff are reminded. I will say to them, remind me of a charity that we've raised money for, what did we do? Because you forget. And the children will remind you, and the staff along will be reminded, and they'll say, I forgot we did that, I forgot we did that. So do pre-Ofsted prep assemblies, not because you fear Ofsted, because you want to show yourself in the best light. We're getting short of time. I wanted, the other thing to touch on is presence in the present. Done a lot of that, we all know that, but we are the key player. I suggest in the classrooms, how do we become authoritative yet approachable? How do we become firm yet warm? And how do we move in our learning space, in our learning rooms? And where have we got the most authority? Children are only interested in 2 things, high challenging kids, in my opinion. That's one, is he or she strict? If they get a new teacher, they want to know, is he or she strict? Have I got to watch my behaviour? And the other thing high challenging kids wants to know is, what can I get away with? Can I get away with the minimal amount of work? Now, I've told you that secret, you now know, and we all knew that all along. They're the 2 key things with challenging kids to get them moving. And remember, heads and strategies and Ofsted success criteria come and go, but confident, authoritative teaching will never, ever, ever change. So we want to keep to that confident, authoritative teaching. Coach your children as opposed to intervention groups. We need those, but coaching is about giving them the fishing rod, you know that. Intervention groups is about giving them the fish. But if you coach them into how to be more self-regulatory, you're giving them the fishing rod to continue for the rest of their lives. Do you want pupils who learn better? Or do you want them to be better learners? I do play on words, but there is a difference. Do you want them to learn better under you, or do you want them to be better learners, more independent? Get the cultural shift. I'm going to skip that. Finally, confidence and humility, the best teachers I've ever seen. Confidence and humility, they wear the mantle, but they don't wear the crown. In your learning room, I would say wear the mantle but not the crown. Keep on noticing, like when we move into a brand new house, You know those shelves, you know those the front door, we make sure it's all okay. 6, 7 months later, 1 year, 2 years, it starts to get a bit tired again, doesn't it? So don't stop noticing your learning room. Make sure you're on the dance floor with the kids, but also make sure you go up to the balcony and you look down. Carry on noticing. I started off with attitude is everything with the children. I truly believe that attitude is everything with the best teachers. Thank you for listening and have a great day what's left of it. I'm Kevin Bullock. Thank you.